Actually, of course, there was a bit of commentary there, which was, by virtue of our special guest tonight, in a way, he engineered England's fantastic recovery of the Ashes in 2005. And of course, that moment, Jones, Bowden, Kasparovitz and all that, Richie Benner's great bit of commentary was very much the core of that fantastic Ashes series. So there's a famous picture of Duncan and Michael Vaughan having regained the Ashes for the first time in about 20 years, nearly 20 years. A fantastic moment for everyone in this country. And I should imagine, Duncan, welcome to World's Best Cricket Club, our modestly titled club. You are very, very welcome. We'll give you a little bit of round of applause for your attendance tonight. And you are one of the world's greatest cricket coaches, as that story about the Ashes proves. Is this picture one of your proudest moments?
Yes, it must be. I mean, at the time and soon after, I didn't realize how important it was until we drove through the streets of London and then realized what it meant to the people. But at the time, all you're trying to do is win a test match and as a result, win a test series.
It was an amazing moment. I mean, it's such an incredibly sort of iconic series. Funnily enough, I mention it because I'm writing about it at the moment. I've started a children's book. I don't know what that says about me, but I've started writing about a story about a kid who got involved in cricket through that series. And I've just met so many people actually who were, then 14, 15, and are now obviously, in their 30s. And they just remember that series so vividly. And I guess you do too, do you? Does it still kind of come flooding back?
Oh, there are times, it's definitely when I sit and think about it and you just think about cricket and where you've been. And I mean, my journey with England was an incredible journey. And there are times I just sit there and pick little moments of, the feelings of winning that sort of sessions or winning just sort of mornings or afternoons. And it definitely comes back to you and it's just a great feeling.
Yeah. Can you just tell us a little bit about the planning? I mean, we want to get on to other series as well. And by the way, of course, you were coach for England at 99 to 2005, so 6 years. And then with a lot of success, obviously a lot of tremendous amount of test match success. And then you were coach of India after that, 2011 to 15. And you won sort of countless series there as well. And I know you kind of hide your light under a bushel a bit as coach, but going back to that 2005 series, what was the key to winning it, do you think?
Well, I mean, I think it's quite simple. There's two major factors, I think. We had talented cricketers. And like I've always said, it's quite sad to think that when you look back at that team, they were all under 30, and I thought he could really improve after 2005. Because I think there was only one player that was over 30, and I think that was Ashley Giles, if I remember right, because you are testing my memory tonight. But they were youngsters. They were really talented. We had an outstanding bowling attack. I mean, the king of all that and the tragedy he got injured is Simon Jones. I mean, I don't think people sort of look back and see what an important role he played, because the amount of fifers he got at certain stages, at critical stages, probably won us the series, his performances. And you had an outstanding captain in Michael Vaughan. I mean, he led the team really well from the front. And it was just those two factors. I think a lot of youth, a lot of enthusiasm. A lot of them weren't carrying baggage, because I played in some series where some baggage was carried and comments were passed, and it used to get me down a little bit. But in this situation, everyone was fresh, up for it. They were really up for it. And by the end of the day, as I say, I think just they were talented cricketers, good batters, good bowlers, great fielders.
But you often see that with teams, and obviously it's happening in the World Cup cricket, the Football World Cup now as well. You see that with teams that they are talented, but they don't play to their talent. And so, confidence and sort of self-belief are clearly kind of key ingredients. Now with England in that, going into that 2005 series, you'd won 2 Test series the previous summer very handsomely. I think you'd won all the Test matches. I suppose there was that element of confidence about the team, but as coach, you have to get that, to imbue that confidence in the players. Although you've got the talent, it's got to kind of somehow come out. So what was your secret, both for England and India, in drawing that talent out and getting that confidence, do you think?
I think it was just getting everyone to contribute. I mean, when I first joined England, I was very, very surprised at how teams were, I've got to be careful here, sort of managed in a way in that there were seniors, juniors, newcomers, and this sort of thing. And my first thing I wanted to do was create a great team spirit off the field in the changing room. And I mean, there were things you had to do that. For example, I remember when I was at Glamorgan, for example, players used to say to me, please, I don't want to be 12th man for England. And I'd ask them why, and they would tell me what would happen. And I just couldn't believe this. And it was something that I thought, even if you're 12th man, you're part of the squad. And I introduced things when we used to play the warm-up games. I used to make the 12th man captain of the side. If we were playing a bit of soccer, the 12th man would be captain, and tell them to shout at Atherton or Hussein and make them part of the team. And by doing that, you just create a general team spirit that everyone's accepted in the side. There's no real seniors, no real juniors. Everyone's there to make a decision. And there were sort of committees I formed that were to make youngsters feel as though they were contributing. And that's the key. You've got to have a lot of leaders and contributing, helping the youngsters, and youngsters feeling as though they can contribute in strategy as well as performances on the field.
Very interesting you say that.
Very, very important.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting you say that, because I tell this story sometimes about my experience of Mike Brearley, that when I was in my first season for Middlesex, he came up to me during a game, and so when we weren't taking any wickets for a while, and said, who do you think should bowl? And I said, well, why are you asking me? You're England captain, Middlesex captain, England captain. Why are you asking me? Well, he said, I just thought you'd be interesting to ask, and I'd like you to be involved, and I want to listen to what you think. And I sort of made a suggestion, and it actually didn't work too well, but he took it on board and he tried what I suggested. And it was an amazing impact that has on you as a person, young player, sort of feeling as if you belong. So where did you get that idea from?
I haven't a clue, Sam. I think it's just sort of my upbringing and having played cricket for so long, being captain for so many years with Zimbabwe and everything. It just slowly comes together, would you like to put it that way? I just thought this was the way teams should be. All my life, I've sort of had teams that have played as one unit. They're not playing for themselves, they're playing for the team to win. And that's the key factor.
Duncan, you were a coach at a high level for a long time in the international game. How much did you change over that time? How much did you change how you did things?
Oh, it's a good question, but very difficult to answer. Those are one of those questions you'd ask to see someone who played with me for a long time. They'd probably give you the answer better than I can give it. But I mean, there must have been changes. I mean, bringing in more technical and off the field functions, like suddenly you're having people taking out videos for you to have a look at players, which you didn't have early on, or wasn't very sophisticated early on. That sort of helped. I know difficult. I find that a difficult question to answer, really.
Yeah. What was it? I mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. How difficult was how did the India job compare to the England job? I suppose is the question I'm interested in. What was the challenge with India? What was the challenge with England?
Well, I think the two with India and England, the main difference was with England, I felt I worked myself into a position where I was in charge. It was like you had a lot of responsibility and you made a lot of major decisions as far as selection, tactics and so forth. and with the players. In India, I felt I didn't really have that power because there were some very powerful players there. And it was like I was more a coach rather than a director of cricket. You obviously did help with strategies, discussing it with players, but you had a player like MS Dhoni, who was an incredible captain. He was an incredible man. And I think he, as a leader, he liked to do things his way. And then he hardly ever got it wrong. So you just tended to let him go along with it. But with England, it was more where you took a more domineering role off the field. And, but on the field, it was still the captain and Vaughan and Nasser Hussain who played major parts.
England are just about to go to Pakistan. I mean, we talked about Ashes 2005, and that was an incredible triumph. But winning in Pakistan was an amazing feat as well. I mean, England have only ever won 2 Test matches in Pakistan when you were there, and also, the first Test match they ever played back in 1961. What does it take to win in Pakistan? What are the sort of the pillars of a potential victory in Pakistan?
I think you've got to have a lot of patience. A lot of patience. There's going to be times you're going to be tested off the field. And then on the field, you're going to have to be very, very careful how you prepare for matches, because the wickets there generally are quite good batting wickets, but then every now and again you'll pitch up and there'll be a real turner. So you're going to probably have to practice playing spin and good spin bowlers, because they've always got magnificent bowlers who use the ball exceptionally well through the air, swing, reverse swing. So you're just going to have to make sure you prepare well and work damn hard off the field and get you sort of mentally confident in what you're going to do.
Just to carry on that theme, and Simon, you can pick up as well. There was that thing at the time that you encouraged players to adopt, which was the forward press for that tour of Pakistan, I think. Where did that come from, and what was the kind of strategy behind that?
Well, Simon, to me, I've said it all along. I mean, I think the coaching manual, there's been lots of things wrong in the coaching manual. And I remember my first speech as an English coach, I went up to meet all the coaches and I said a few things, and you could just see the guys sort of laughed at me. But I think the coaching manual was wrong in many areas. And to me, one question I ask is if I said to someone, why do you move your feet? And no one can really give me an answer besides getting to the pitch of the ball. Well, I'm saying, why not stand with your feet apart and you're already at the pitch of the ball, so you can wait longer for the ball to come through the air and make a better decision to play the shot, and therefore just transfer weight rather than moving your foot. Because I mean, I can go on for hours on this. Is if you've got a guy bowling at 100 miles an hour at you, and as soon as that ball leaves his hand, you've got to make a decision where you're going to pick up this foot, which is heavy, move your hips, which is the heaviest part of your body with your head, and put it in a position where it's going to land if he's on the front foot. Now, I'm saying, why not have your foot there already and just use your foot to create an angle as to where you want to drive the ball or play the forward defensive? I mean, it sounds simple, but I'd have to explain it to you on a chart, which I do. And that's what it's all about. And then just transfer weight. You hear a lot of people. I remember the great Peter Kirsten once, and he said to me they were going to play Alan Curry in a Western Province. This is when I moved down here and I went to a Western Province meeting before the season started. And they were worried about playing Alan Curry, this great spinner. And then they discussed something. And then on a TV interview, about 2 nights later, he was asked, how do you play spin? You're a good player of spin. And he says, I stand absolutely still until I find what the length of the ball is, and then I move my feet, but I make sure I'm still. And he never did that. He didn't realize he actually pressed first. So he widened that stance so that his last part is just a small movement, which is what you want. You want small movements. As soon as you have large movements, error content is going to increase. So you want to reduce error content.
I mean, it's a fascinating analogy or comparisons. I was just thinking, you grew up watching Graham Pollock bat, who of course had that absolutely ingrained in his method, didn't he? He had a big wide stance, and he basically never moved his feet. It was short, he rocked back and cut and pulled, and if it was full, he just stood where he was and hit it on the up. Very simple method. And I suppose just to compare that, in a way, the greatest player that's been from your part of the world over the last 10, 15 years, A.B. de Villiers, well, and Jacques Kallis, I suppose, but A.B. de Villiers has been sort of triple format and an amazing player. And he moves before the ball is bowled, but then he stands very still in this sort of what he calls his box, and then waits for the ball to come to him. So I suppose you've got two slightly contrasting methods there with Pollock and de Villiers, but in a way, they're both doing the same thing, which is once they've set their position, they stay still.
Well, it's very, very important being still. I mean, to keep that head still is absolutely crucial. Those eyes have got to be still, as much as possible. And I think that's very, very important as well.
How easy was it to get that across to the players at the time? How did it take them a long time to be convinced, or did it sort of gradually filter in, or was there a sort of eureka moment when they, so actually no, this really works?
I mean, some players, it's quite strange. With some batsmen, you've sort of half finishing your sentence and they catch on, and some batsmen you can talk for 2 days and they still don't pick it up. And I don't know. Don't ask me the reason why, because I might get shot down, but I'll keep that to myself. But it's basically some pick it up quite quickly and some don't pick it up quickly. They just don't understand it. You've just got to keep pushing it on. Don't push it too hard because they can start getting confused. You've got to be very clear in what you're saying. That I must admit, you can't. You've got to give good reasons for it. One of the things I find very strange in cricket is when a coach says, well, try that and see what happens. I mean, that's the most stupid statement I've ever heard. And the player should never accept that. You should say, why should I do that? And you must have very good reasons. Like I've tried to explain why you stand with your feet apart. Is because why do you move your feet? Why not just transfer your weight? You're at the pitch of the ball, gives you more time to think about, because remember, when that ball's coming at you at 100 miles an hour and it swings, like say Malcolm Marshall used to, you had to make sure that your foot's going out there when the ball's about 5 meters from his arm, once it's left his hand, 5 meters. I'm just using numbers, but I think you can pick up where I'm trying to lead to and then suddenly you get your foot going in that line because it's a straight ball at that stage. You place your foot and then it swings. You can't pick your foot up again and then move it to where it swung to. So, but if my foot's out there, you can wait till the swing starts and then move it, because then you're in a better position to do that. But it's all to do with timing in that technique.
Did you try and impart that idea to the Indian players? And how would they?
Some of them I did, yeah. Some of them I did do that. I mean, Virat Kohli was
someone
a
like
key.
Dravid would have listened to you.
Virat Kohli was a big believed in it, because I thought in England, when he struggles with that away swinger, that was it, because his feet were too close together. And suddenly with Jimmy swinging it like he did, you've got a huge problem, because like I said, you're suddenly putting your foot down this line of the ball that you first pick up, and then it leaves you, then you have to start playing away from your body because you haven't got time to pick it up and move it again. It's too heavy and takes time.
Would you have liked to have coached yourself as a batsman, especially?
Oh, definitely. I wish I, as a younger batter, I thought like I did as I got older, but I mean, that's everyone thinks along those lines, I think.
So I remember you as a player, you're quite sort of combative batsman and obviously a good player. Did you ever sort of imagine that you would go into, especially the art of batting, in this amount of depth?
Yeah, there was. I mean, there were times when I batted, for example, I found, and it's another area that I try to work with the players, is to get lower to spin bowlers. Because I found Barry Dullston once said to me, when with the Leicester player and umpire, he played in Zimbabwe, as you probably know, And he said to me, Duncan, what do you do? Because you judge length very, very well against spinners, because I played spinners, I think, very well. And I said, you know what I do, Barry, is once I finish this, if a seam is on and then the spinner comes on, I like to open my stance and crouch. I like to get down. And it took me years to find out why. I knew that helped me, but I didn't know why until I saw Cheryl Calder, who is a very top eye specialist.
The eye lady.
And England Rugby used her during the World Cup.
Yeah, yeah.
Clive Woodward used her. Now, Cheryl was starting out when I got her involved with Western Province. And I asked her this question, and she'd once told me, I could go on about this. I don't want to use up all the time on this.
No, this is interesting. Don't worry.
She said to me that she wasn't sure when I explained it. I said, when I get with spinners, I like to get lower and look under it, because I'd heard the Aussies say, get the ball above their eyes. Now, I think that's great, because I think you should let it go above the eyes, because if you have a look at how your eyes work, and Cheryl and I worked on this together, in that when you got below the ball and you could look under the loop of the ball, because your eye tracks like a camera, it's tracking, doesn't have continuous vision, your eyes. And by looking underneath it, it then had markers and references to see what the loop was, what the flight was. And then she worked out, she said, yes, it's true. If you stand there with your eyes and you look at something and then don't move your head and then look above and just move your eyes, as they go up, they get blurred. So if you think about it, I said, now you've cracked it. Now I know what's going on, Cheryl, is if you stand tall and the ball goes above your eyes, you've got to just use your eyes to track the ball. And so as the ball looks at and the ball gets above your eyes, that blurriness comes in and you can misjudge length. Whereas if you crouch and your head is looking up now, I hope I'm explaining this carefully, your head is now looking up. You're not raising your eyes to look at the flight because you're looking up underneath it, and then you can see the flight and it's not so blurry. So you've got a better chance of judging length.
I'm amazed, that she hasn't had more players work with her. I know I talked to her actually about a few months ago, and I know Faf du Plessis worked with her, and he had the best season in the IPL after he'd had a few sessions with her. And he won the purple cap, the leading run scorer in the IPL that following season it was in Dubai, I think, that series, the IPL series. But I mean, listening to her talking and listening to you talking about her, I'm amazed more people don't, take her on board, because I've done a few experiments myself with eyesight and tested mine against a good batsman and so on. And there's so much you can do and so much you can learn from it, isn't there?
Oh, she's outstanding. I'm serious. She really knew her business. I think all her work's been pinched by the people, a lot of people, I think, and using her initial sort of input to improving eyesight, improving your sports performance. She's very, very good.
So how much did you see yourself as a technical coach, Duncan? How much did you see yourself as a strategy coach or a people manager? I mean, there are different aspects, aren't there, to coaching?
Well, I don't know. I think it's mainly I can remember I was basically captain of a cricket team from 11 years of age. And there was only 1 year at senior school where schoolmaster didn't enjoy me too much. We had a bit of a fallout. I didn't captain like at under 15. And then from then on, I'd been captain and had to manage, in Zimbabwe days, in those first few days, we didn't have a coach, we didn't have a manager. So you were captain, coach, manager, you did everything. I mean, so you just learned. I learned right through my career to just take everything on board. And I just enjoyed it. I was enthusiastic about the game and dealing with people.
There's just one other thing I'll just touch on before we get some questions from our members. Just going back to 2005, the Ashes, one thing that you did in that series, which was quite groundbreaking, I think, was to get Freddie to bowl round the wicket to Adam Gilchrist and other left-handers, and maybe the other bowlers as well, but particularly Freddie. And I mean, it wasn't the first time, I know, that a right-arm bowler bowled round the wicket to left-handers, but it was the first time that it had been used as a sort of very specific ploy. And now it's amazing. I mean, there was a stat wheeled out about a couple of years ago that from 2010 to 2020, the left-handers in Test cricket who dominated the previous decade, you know, the likes of Sangakkara, Lara, Board, before that, Alan Border, people like that, you know, obviously Cook as well, Hayden, Langer, etc. They, you know, the left-handers' output has been seriously reduced by that ploy of right-handed bowlers going around the wicket. So where did that come from? And were you instrumental in bringing that in, and why?
Well, I just think it came from a point of view where geometry plays a huge part in sport. If you don't understand angles, you're going to struggle. I mean, it's absolutely crucial that you must understand where a ball's bowled at you, what it does to you, and where you're going to try and hit it as a batsman. Bowlers understanding why you're going to go round there. And we felt by going round the wicket with Freddie, who bowls into you, I felt that if he bowled over the wicket to a left-hander, generally speaking, I'm talking here, you could only get a caught behind or maybe hitting off stump, because anything else would have to pitch outside leg. Whereas if you came round the wicket, you tighten up the angle on him, because that's what Gilchrist wanted. Gilchrist loved room. You could see the way he held the bat, that he liked to slash at a sort of 45-degree bat swing through on impact. And he didn't like playing with a straight bat. By going round the wicket to him, we reduced that. He had to play with a straight bat. And then we attacked just on off stump. And then you've got three ways of getting him out. You can get him out caught behind, bowled, and LBW. So surely that's the way you look at it. I've got three ways of getting him out, whereas over the wicket, I can only really get him out one way, and that's caught behind. So you're increasing your chances.
It's been an amazing success. It's been an amazing success, hasn't it? That ploy, I suppose, in a way, aided by or kind of initiated by the fact that you were a left-hander, and you probably didn't receive too many bowlers bowling round the wicket to you, I guess.
Well, I think that, as I said, because you felt more comfortable. I always used to feel more comfortable. I remember discussing it with John Tricos. You remember John Tricos, Simon, the off-spin bowler? Yeah. I tried to get him to bowl off-spin to left-handers round the wicket, and he just didn't want to do it. He was just stubborn. And it was there, I thought all off-break bowlers should definitely bowl round the wicket, because it comes back to giving yourself three ways to get him out. Whereas over the wicket, you've basically got one way if he uses his pads correctly.
One other little point about you. You loved a pair of glasses, didn't you? Inscrutable, I think you were described as the coach who you can't tell his emotions. How important was that in your coaching career?
I think it's absolutely crucial in the changing room that you can't show too much emotion from the point of view is because if you're doing well and you sort of bustling around the changing room and bubbling and everything, as soon as you're not doing well, you change that, then you suddenly put in this unknown pressure on the players that, oopsie, we're in trouble here. Whereas if they didn't see how emotional you got, I felt it didn't have that effect of when you weren't doing too well, that it didn't really rub off on them. Your sort of mental attitude was difficult to pick up.
Are we ready for some questions, yours?
Yeah, I was going to ask one more thing, and that is just tell us what you're up to now, because you were telling me on the phone before that you've parked your cricketing kind of professional life now, really, and you're into wildlife and bird watching. Just tell us a little bit about your various trips you've made recently.
Well, that's mainly why I tend to get too involved in things like I did with cricket, and now I've got into photographing birds more than wildlife, because an elephant's an elephant and a lion's a lion. But There's 975 birds in southern Africa, and southern Africa is from the Zambezi down, so it includes Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia, and half of Mozambique. And I've made it a mission. I'm never going to be able to do it. I want to photograph all 975 birds. I've got to 760 at the moment. So in about 5 years. So I'm doing quite a lot of traveling with my wife, but sometimes I go on my own. And as I said to you, we went to an exciting adventure to Mozambique, into the bush. And I mean in the bush, we were driving where there were no roads, two buckies, as they call them here, we call them buckies. I don't know what you would call them in the
Jeeps,
UK.
are they?
Utes, like utes, Australia, they've got to be four-wheel drive. And I mean, we went on this trip for 18 days, waking up at 4 o'clock every single morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and basically driving and looking for birds until it got dark. And we had a guy bitten by a puff adder. He's lucky to be alive because our nearest point of call to help him to get anti-serum was 4 hours. We got him there, and the doctors didn't know how to, two Mozambican doctors didn't know how to administer anti-venom because you have to do it via drips. So they did it via YouTube. Can you believe it? These two doctors in the bush putting this serum in with via YouTube. They were fortunate the Wi-Fi was working, because if the Wi-Fi wasn't working, that bloke would have died, or he definitely would have lost an arm.
Amazing.
And then about 5 days later, we were sitting under some trees trying to photograph this very rare bird, 5 of us sitting on our bums on the dirt, when we suddenly heard a noise behind us, and we turned around and there were 8 wild dog. And if you know about wild dog, they're a very scary, scary animal. There were 8 of them behind us. One crept up testing us out, and the guy said to us, the guide who was with us, says, just stand up and look big. We stood up. I don't think they would have done anything with 8 wild dog, because they take down huge damn animals. And they played with us for about half an hour, and it was scary. I mean, I had one guy who was a doctor with me, and I mean, I was nervous, but I've never seen a human like that. He was scared, he was sweating, he was asking whether he should climb a tree. I said, I don't think you'll make it up the tree. So it was quite an adventure. So that's the kind of things we're going on at the moment.
God, it makes cricket sound a bit tame.
Yeah,
Are you going back?
It definitely does.
Are you going
Pardon?
back for more? Are you going back for
I'm
more?
going back. I've been back twice since, been back there as well. Well, we've just been the one place we were, the hunter. There was a hunter in the one Kutadi 11 where we went. He was bitten by a cobra and never made it. They flew him to Beira and he didn't make it with a cobra bite.
God.
Wow.
Yeah.
Blimey.
So it's exciting. They're adventures. It's really nice. Very, very nice.
Wow, well, what a fantastic story.
Yeah.
Listen, let's go to so I remember some questions. We've been working very patiently. We've got one from India, for instance, who's looking forward to asking a question.
Not actually not. So you're going to ask the first question, and then Niraj, and then Sam. I think that's the initial early order. So
yeah, so
on you go.
I thought Simon, given that Duncan is our VIP guest on the show, there's only one question to ask as far as I'm concerned, and that is back to 2005, of course, and Ricky Ponting has just been run out by Gary Pratt famously, yeah. And then it goes back into the old pavilion, the camera follows him, and he goes up the steps, and of course you famously see him say something to, I believe, you, right, above him. And I think we all want to know, what exactly did he say?
Well, let's put it this way. Whatever he said should never have been said. It was foul language. And if it had been any other player, I can guarantee that player would have been banned for a test match. So let's leave it at that. I think his language was atrocious. In fact, I'm glad there wasn't a camera on me at the time, because a lot of people didn't actually see what happened, because as he was about to enter the hallway, I sort of used my hand and went like this to him, and they didn't realize he came back out again and then used foul language again. So then that's when I just turned around and went back in the changing room.
There you go. See, they've got a scoop. They've got a little scoop.
There we go. There we go. Nots. Okay, Niraj. Where's Niraj? Okay, there we go. Where are you tonight, Niraj?
Hi guys. Hi, Mr. Fletcher. Hi, Simon. I'm in Mumbai.
Mumbai. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi. So my question to you, Mr. Fletcher, is I've got two questions actually. The first is you had the knack of picking up players like Michael Chesothick, Michael Vaughan, then Steve Harmison, then later on Ian Bell, Kevin Peterson. How do you do it? Like, what did you see in them? And it was like a masterstroke that they got it all. So successful. And my second question was in the Fletcher years documentary. You said in the end there were 4 players who are 30 years and above who had tears in the eyes. I mean, could you name those players?
So repeat that question, the last one.
The Fletcher years documentary, which in that you mentioned that in the end, when you were leaving, there were players who actually had tears in their eyes. There were 4 players you mentioned. Who are those players, if you can name them?
Well, on the first question, look, I think it's important that it's just, firstly, you have a look at the individual and discover there's sort of things he does off the field is crucial. You just watch them and see how they prepare, their thought processes, just their sort of attitude. And then secondly, added to that is when they play, you just see certain things that you say to yourself, and I used it as my gauge. I'd watch them in the nets or watch them in a game, and I would say, I don't think I'd like to bowl to that guy. And that was my simple formula of saying, I'm not sure I'd like to bowl to that bloke. Whereas the other people where I would judge, I say, I'd like to bowl to him. I mean, he might get on top of me now and again or something, but I could feel as though I could control him. Where some batters, you just feel, oh my goodness, crikey, he'd be very difficult to bowl to. The one, India, your interesting one was Virat Kohli. I remember my very first tour was to the West Indies. And I watched Virat play there, and he played those quick bowlers in Jamaica, where they went at him. And at first, he looked well out of his depth. And then within no time, he had worked it out. They bounced him. And I was really surprised he didn't stay on and play in the Test series in England. Stay on, he was sent home. He went back and was replaced by the more senior players. But other junior players stayed with us in England. And I thought it would have been an ideal opportunity because he was such a good cricketer. As to the other one, there was more like 4 players didn't have tears in their eyes, but so really most of them did. I mean, I know Michael Vaughan openly said it when he gave a speech afterwards. He actually says, I can't believe I'm talking when I'm blubbing. I think he used the words, I can't believe it, I'm talking when I'm blubbing now. And so there were quite a few players who just, and that was probably one of the greatest feelings I've had, where you realize you've contributed to people's lives and helped them.
I think it was a great documentary. I mean, it's amazing watching, and it was a great documentary, actually. Really.
Yeah, thank you very much. Oh,
thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Great. Thank you very much, Niraj. Okay, Sam, let's move on.
Evening, everybody. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can. Thanks.
Duncan, thanks for coming on. I've got my sonnies here too to shield my emotion from 2005, being an Aussie, but it was obviously the best cricket that's ever been played. I wanted to ask, from your opinion, what's a moment from that series that's maybe underappreciated and underrated? Obviously, behind you, you've got the Edgbaston moment. Ponting's run out already got spoken about. Perhaps a slow ball from Harmison to Clark. Is there something that doesn't get mentioned a lot, or a moment, or something that Vaughan did, or something that that doesn't get airplay maybe like it should?
I just think the two things was obviously, like I said, Jones. Simon Jones, you go back and have a look at him with the wickets he got. And, he was injured pretty seriously at the end there when Trent Bridge, I mean, I don't think he played after that test. He played very little. So Simon Jones was a key factor.
He's never played. He's never played since, no.
Pardon?
That was his last test.
Yeah, I think it might have been his last test.
It was,
just imagine him if he had gone and stayed on and gone back to Australia, because he was just starting out. I mean, I still think he had rooms of improvement. And then secondly, I think the big thing that's underplayed is the mental attitude of the England players for once and we had discussed it big time and again, was about don't stand back to the Australians. Don't reply to them, because I've always said they adopt a bullying attitude. And with a bully, if you don't say much, they don't know where they stand. Whereas if you talk back, then that's what they want. So I think the mental attitude was very, very good. And that's not spoken about enough.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I did hear on one documentary somewhere that Vaughan always said, or maybe you said, in the last hour of play, make sure we switch right back on and stuff. So that's probably a testament to what you just said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Sam. Okay, so we've got Pushkar, Rob, and Jacob. That's the order from now. So over to you, Pushkar.
Yeah. Hi, Duncan. So I have a couple of questions. Now, my first question is, why is overseas coach more result oriented with respect to India? Be John Wright, or be Gary Carson, or you? Because we have won most of the international series under these three coaches, unlike the most high-profile Indian ex-cricketers. And my second coach is India playing T20 cricket with their ODI template? Because they are not showing any initiative in the power plays. And why is that when we talk about all-rounders, it has to be a bowler who can bat? Why not a batter who can bowl in T20s?
Oh, some difficult questions to answer there. As far as the coaches are concerned, I mean, I just find it difficult how foreign coaches do well. I think it's mainly because they go in there and they're not as biased towards certain areas of that country. I mean, Ravi Shastri's done really well. I mean, Ravi's done exceptionally well for India. And I mean, I just think it's like personalities. I mean, England, you take England, for example, they haven't really had a successful England coach. They've struggled to have to get someone to coach them. They've, a lot of foreigners have gone and done quite well there. As to India, your second question with the T20 template, I just think it's difficult with cricket. I mean, at some stage you go with a template and you don't change it, and that's where the problem comes in. As you're successful, you don't want to change that template, and then suddenly other people catch up and they come in with a different template which thinks you're one, and you've then got to change. But it does take time. You just can't introduce new ways of playing the game. And what was your third question?
Why it has to be the bowler who can bat, not a batter?
Oh, that's
who can
right. I think it's to try and get the balance of the side right. I think that's where the problem comes in, is you tend to want to have 4 bowlers, and the 5th bowler must be a good enough bowler. He can't be just a batter who can bowl a bit, because then you've only got 4 bowlers. No, sorry, if you've got the bowler who bats a bit, then you've got too many bowlers and your batting depth is not good enough. I think that's where the problem arises. And you also have this problem where in cricket today, it's very difficult to bat and bowl, be a good batter and a good bowler. One of them's got to suffer. Either your bowling suffers or your batting suffers, because when it comes to practice, you can't put it in, because you've also got to do your fielding as well, because that's an absolutely crucial part of the game, no matter what it is. And I just think you're just asking a player too much to bat and be a good batter and be a good enough bowler. And I think that's where there could be the problem.
Yeah. Thanks.
Pushkar, thanks very much for your question. Just a little interjection from me. Firstly, do you watch much T20 and do you like it? And secondly, do you think players actually, you're saying that players, it's difficult to be a really star batsman and bowler, i.e. sort of a Jacques Kallis type of character. Is that because players are almost too obsessed by practice now, and that therefore you can't devote enough time to each discipline?
Well, I think it's no doubt that players do practice a lot more than in our day to some degree. But I mean, that's also, they've got an opportunity to do it where, in time gone by, you had a job to carry out. Well, we did a job and you had to go and practice after work. But nowadays, being a professional cricketer, I mean, it is difficult, or let's put it this way, they do practice a lot and need to have a break from the game at some stage because you get that burnout.
Yeah, that's
so
what I mean. In a way, I wonder whether the amount of players are almost addicted to practice now, and because they've got the coaches, they've got the number of coaches that can help them, and therefore they make best use of them. They utilize coaches a lot. Therefore, practice has become almost more important than playing. I mean, and that's what causes the burnout as much as it does actually playing.
Well, I think it stems from, when you watch these other sports as well, golfers, for example, when they're not playing, they're on a driving range, hitting ball after ball, just training the brain, train the brain. And that's what the cricketers are doing now. And to do bowling and batting, going back to that, that's going to take up an enormous amount of time and energy and everything. So you really just want to concentrate on one angle. And you'll find often what happens is that with all-rounders sometimes is that if their batting's going well and their bowling is not going well, then they tend to just slack off on the batting, start working on the bowling, and then suddenly the batting starts faltering, and while the bowling's improving, and they've got to go back to working on their batting. And that I definitely know happened with Jacques Kallis at one stage, where his batting was good and he just had to work on his bowling because he was going to bowl a lot in England. They were going to use him quite a lot in England. And I think it was that one series when he went over there, he actually, for the first time, didn't perform too well with the bat.
Which would you have been then, if you would have had to? Because you were an all-rounder, and I mean, you opened the bowling, didn't you? And you could bat in the top four. So which would you have concentrated on then? Do you think?
Also had to captain. No, it was. I think I concentrated more on my batting than the bowling.
Mm.
I don't think we were skilled as bowlers, Simon, as they are today.
Mm.
When you look back, the bowling today is really skilled compared to when we played. The batting has got more skillful, there's no doubt. But I think in the bowling department, the bowlers are very, very skilled. The amount of balls they bowl compared to what we bowl
is partly applying science, isn't it? Applying the science. Hawkeye. All the pitch maps and everything that you have now, they're able to almost forensically apply that to a particular batsman, and with all the skills they have, as you say. So it makes them almost like, not machines exactly, but almost.
But I think, they are, is the skill is, the amount of balls they bowl, these slower balls and the type of slower balls, we never dreamt of that, bowling out of the back of the hand and and all these other balls. There were some variations. I don't think we were completely straightforward and just bowling one type of ball, but the amount of balls that they do bowl now is quite remarkable.
Okay, let's move on to Rob. Rob's been waiting patiently, and then Jacob. And I think that's it then for questions. So off you go, Rob.
Evening all.
Hello, Rob.
Good evening, Duncan. Just a quick question for you. Who are the top 3 players you would have liked to have worked with but never had the chance?
Wow.
In any generation?
Any generation. So if you could pick from any generation, who are the top 3 players who you would love to have worked with but never had the opportunity?
Well,
there's no pressure.
There's a contradiction. There'll be a bit of a contradiction here because the 3 top players didn't need coaching. They were so good. But if you said to me if you'd like to have worked with them, I think there is no doubt to me the best player, or the player I had most admiration for, was Graham Pollock. I actually used to love fielding when he batted against us because he's the one batter I only described, he was majestic. Other batters weren't majestic. He was majestic. When Graham walked out to bat and you're on the field, you just got these goosebumps that you were going to watch something that was very, very special. And it happened on a regular basis. He was so good. He's one. I think the other person I'd like, strangely enough, the other one I would like to have worked with a lot is Ricky Ponting. I used to love Ricky Ponting bat. When he went out to bat, whoever you made sure you sat down and watched him. He was an exciting batsman. Something was always on the go. So, and also I think just picking his brain, I would love to have worked with Ricky Ponting. And third one, oh, that's a very difficult one. I would like to work with Malcolm Marshall, coached with Malcolm Marshall on the bowling side. I think he, to me, was a very, very special cricketer.
Shane Warne?
Pardon?
Shane Warne?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, Shane as well. I think Shane, you can go on, but it was just these three bowlers, just Marshall being a quick bowler and me being a quick bowler, just bounce things off him as a coach and just see, because I know he did a magnificent job in South Africa coaching Natal. He was brilliant with us. He came with the young West Indian tour to Zimbabwe just before we went to the World Cup. And we used him a few times. He came to the changing room as this young 20-year-old. I think he was 21 something. And he was an incredible cricket brain.
Super. Thank you, Duncan. Cheers.
Cheers.
Did you ever play against Pollock, actually?
Yeah, I played a lot against Korea. Yeah,
so how did that work? Zimbabwe against Transvaal?
Well, it was in the Currie Cup where it was really Rhodesia in the Currie Cup.
Right.
That was before we got independence in '84.
Okay. I agree with you, actually. I think he was an incredible player. I mean, I was lucky or unlucky enough to bowl at him a bit, and I thought it was an amazing experience. And I coached in Transvaal that couple of years when he was still playing, and every kid that you went to try and coach all stood exactly like him, with big, even an 11-year-old kid would stand with a massive wide stance, because that's what they saw him do and how successful he was.
Well, I mean, I think one of the great things about him was in his last test match at the age of 42, I think, or 43, against those rebel Australians in Port Elizabeth, his hometown. He wanted to play there. At 42 against, you look at them, Rodney Hogg, quick bowlers, Ruckerman, and he finished his career with 100. I mean, that's something special at 42 years of age.
Brilliant. Great question, Rob. Jacob.
Hello there, Simon, Bill Simons.
Hi.
Great insight. Just a question. I was really interested to hear what you said about the difference between coaching England and India, and the sort of results that MS Dhoni had on India when he was the captain. I just wondered, and you said more often than not he got things right. I just wondered if you had any occasions where you had a difference of opinion, or the way you read the game to MS, and that you like to share with us, and how that kind of played out. How does he take to challenge?
Well, the key to all that is, I mean, I had different opinions with Nasser. I had different opinions with Michael Vaughan. Had different opinions with MS Dhoni. But the key to it all is you made sure that if you had a difference of opinion, it was never in front of the team. You always made sure your conversation, whatever it was, and you had an idea of how something should take place, a strategy or a game plan or whatever you want to call it. You went and discussed it, just the two of you, and you had your discussions there. And if he was strong on what he wanted done, once you left that team room, that his room or wherever you had that discussion, that was it. Time was up. He was in charge, and you made sure that although you disagreed with something, you made sure you backed him in every way. And I think that's the way it should be. And then with MS, I mean, like I said, he didn't often get it wrong. He just had this. He was an incredible man. I tell you, he's one of the most incredible cricketers I've come across as a person.
I mean, he had a total sort of self-belief, didn't he? Unbelievable.
Yeah, he was a very confident, quiet, humble person who just played the game the right way. He just had an incredible individual. It's very difficult to describe how, what kind of man he was.
Thank you, Duncan.
Yeah, pleasure.
Is that it, Simon?
That's it in terms of questions.
It is.
Yeah.
I'd love to know what you think of the modern game. So, actually, just tell us a little bit about. So, you're living in South Africa now. You're down on the Cape there. Now, what do you think of South African cricket? They got knocked out of that in the T20 World Cup. They've sort of stumbled a few times in tournaments. You know, obviously there are issues in South African cricket generally. You're right in the middle of it. So what do you feel about South African cricket at the moment?
Well, I just think there's a lot of talent around. There's no doubt about it. But there's just, as you said, there's quite a lot goes on off the field, which is very difficult for the players, because no matter how you try and step away from that, you can't completely ignore what's going on. And I just feel that, the players, if they could be left to themselves, then they would help a great deal. I mean, there's definitely talented cricketers. They got good bowlers. They got some great spinners at the moment. Well, not great spinners, but very good spinners, and just give them a chance. There's I think, a few selection problems that they need to iron out. Certain players that I think were very talented and were dropped. And that's one thing with a player, you've got to be very careful when you get a talented player. Make sure you bank on him and back him for some time. I mean, Jacques Kallis was a very good example of that with Bob Woolmer, kept him in the side. I mean, Jacques, you can have a look at Jacques' first 10, 15 innings. I mean, I don't think there are many sides would have kept him in the side today, would have kept him in the side. But they plugged on with him because they recognize talent. And, when you get these talented guys, you just make sure you back them and keep going with them.
Do you think the new T20 tournament will be a success in South Africa?
I'm not sure, Simon. From the point of view I don't know if the cricket fraternity is big enough in South Africa to maintain it, but maybe with support that India has brought to it, and that support will come a lot from India, might make it a success. But solely in South Africa, I can't see the cricketing base being big enough to maintain that sort of tournament. But I'm sure the first season it's going to be pretty successful, but whether they can maintain it over a few seasons we're going to have to wait and see.
And one more final one for me. Zimbabwe, obviously they had a sort of a couple of isolated successes in the World T20. Do you have any connection with that, with the Zimbabwe cricket now, and how are they looking?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I went up there about 6 years ago, I think it was, when Kevin Curran, remember the late Kevin Curran, when he was coaching the academy, went up there. And it's incredible to see the hardship they go through, to play cricket up there, the shorter money, the cricket kit. You must see players pitching up, and I mean it, boots with holes in them. It's incredible what they do, and yet they still put in these results and they've got some good cricketers. I think they've got some very good cricketers, and all credit to them that they just enjoy the game of cricket. And, really enthusiastic about it. And I just wish they got a lot more support from outside of Zimbabwe, financially and helping in the cricket that they can play.
Simon, you got anything else you want to?
Well, I've got one final question. And Duncan, amidst all your bird watching, have you had a chance to did you have a chance to have a look at England this summer and the way they approach their cricket? And if you did, what did you think of it?
Well, I think at the moment there's no doubt England's white ball cricket is very, very good. I mean, they've got some cricketers there who are outstanding with that white ball. I just feel on the test match side, when I've watched there, once again, sometimes I've just thought that there's been a bit too much chopping and changing in selection and test cricket, especially on the batting side. But I think they've got a really good crop of cricketers at the moment, and if they can just mold together and be a little bit more consistent, they're going to put in some very good performances.
Great, Duncan. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to have you with us for an hour. I'm sure everyone who's been on this call would agree, all the members of the World's Best Cricket Club. I think that's it. Yours, is it?
Yeah. I mean, thank you very much, Duncan. And I know it's not your your natural thing to, give interviews and stuff, but it's really interesting to hear your psyche about the game and your thoughts. And it's all about detail and, little kind of strategies and your understanding of people as well. And it helps us, I think it helps all of us appreciate what players go through and, why players have difficulties and why they have successes. And, I really think coaching is very underrated still, actually. I mean, we had Paul Farbres on this, on our podcast last week, talking about how he and Trevor Bayliss worked with the current England side. And, the impact that Bayliss has had in the same way as you did, I think, just kind of taking common sense decisions and simple methods of getting closer to players, understanding them and allowing them to be themselves and flourish. It's so important. I mean, management in any business, in fact, is just absolutely fundamental, isn't it, Simon?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure Duncan would concur with that. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think the big thing you mentioned is that word, two words, common sense is absolutely crucial.
Sean Pollock always says common sense is not all that common.
Yeah, I know. No, but I think it's just common sense. And the key to it all is, at the end of the day, if you're going to talk to someone, make sure you can picture yourself as that person you're talking to, and how would you like to be spoken to, and how you would like to be explained. So I think, it's like that poem we put in their bags in the 205 series about the man in the mirror, that poem that was, that's crucial.
What is it?
I can't remember it. I remember digging it out somewhere and seeing it, and we put it in each guy's cricket bag box. There was a poem about something about the man in the mirror. Look at who you're looking at when you go out to play. I can't remember it, Simon, but I think it was titled "Man in the Mirror."
I'll have to look that up. Do you know that one, Simon?
No, I don't. I do remember it vaguely from Duncan talking about it. I remember it sort of comes back to me, but it's very easy.
But just go and read the words of that.
Yeah,
it's quite important.
Yeah.
Very good, thank you. I'm actually I'm embarking on a podcast series on the history of the Ashes kind of thing. So I might come back to you at some point, because I want to sort of obviously talk about the 2005 series and get some nuggets. So I'll perhaps come back to you when you're back from one of your trips.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you anyway.
Pleasure.
Round of applause for your contribution tonight to our club. We've had a great deal of fantastic people on, and you are one of the best. So thank you very, very much. And look forward to it. Are you back in England at all soon or not? Probably not.
No, my traveling is around Southern Africa. That's all I go.
Is there anywhere where we can see your bird photo?
Well, I've got them on my computer. Yeah, there's about 2,000 photos, 3,000 photos. So
you're not going to set up a Duncan Fletcher bird watching website?
No, it's for just my own private collection.
Okay.
Watch out for those snakes, Duncan.
Yeah, no, we will. Yeah. More the wild dogs actually than the snakes.
Both. God.
Jesus. Yeah. Well, good luck with it.
Okay, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Duncan. Thanks for coming on.
Good night, everyone. Good night.
Bye. Bye.